You know, there's this old teaching that compares people to fish. It says that just like in the ocean, the bigger fish just swallows the smaller one whole. Well, the same is true for us. If you took away the fear of government, the powerful wouldn't just compete with the weak or push them aside. They would consume them.
And look, this isn't some abstract, grim, philosophical idea. No, this horrifying comparison, it comes from a sage who literally watched his own society devour itself from the inside out. He saw it with his own two eyes.
Okay, so let's get into this. The sage we're talking about was Rabbi Chanina, the deputy high priest, and you have to understand the world he was living in. He was serving in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem during its final, absolutely chaotic decades. I mean, it was a time when everything was just coming apart at the seams.
Just think about this for a second. The high priesthood, the holiest position in the land, was basically for sale. Rome was selling it to the highest bidder. And in the years right before the Roman invasion, Jewish factions started turning on each other with just this shocking savagery. You had zealots murdering fellow Jews in the streets. You had radical groups, get this, burning Jerusalem's own food supplies during the Roman siege, just to force everyone to fight. They were condemning their own people to starve to death. So Rabbi Chanina, he's watching all of this. He's seeing neighbor devour neighbor long before a single Roman soldier even made it inside the city walls.
And he uses this very specific Hebrew phrase for it, avar chaim. It means to swallow his fellow alive. That's the detail that's so terrifying. It means the predator is consuming the victim, and the victim is feeling every single moment of it. But the predator doesn't even register it. The cruelty is just thoughtless. And you know, this isn't just about physical violence. Think about it. An unchecked human ego can do the exact same thing. It can swallow another person alive by just absorbing them into its own story, right? Reducing them to a bit player in its own movie. So after witnessing this total collapse of civilization, Rabbi Chanina comes up with a solution. But it's not a happy one. It's not born from some grand idealism. It's born from pure trauma. He says, pray for the welfare of the government. Now notice what he says there. He doesn't just say obey the government, he says pray for it. And remember, for most of Jewish history, the governments they were living under were, well, they were hostile. And yet the instruction is to pray for their welfare. Why? Because the alternative, that vacuum of order, the chaos he saw firsthand, is just so much worse. I mean, even an oppressive government is better than the savage free-for-all that comes when there's nothing.
So, okay, fear works. It's a restraint. It prevents the predators from being totally unleashed. But is that really the best we can do? I mean, is fear the only thing standing between us and the jungle?
Well, right next to this teaching in the Talmud, you find another one. It's from a different sage who, believe it or not, has the same name, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion. And he has the exact same diagnosis, that the space between people is dangerous. But his cure? It's radically different. Where the first Rabbi Chanina says, fill the space with fear, this one says, no, fill it with meaning.
So let's explore the second path. Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion, he doesn't start with governments or big societal structures. He starts small. He starts with a simple conversation between two people. He says that if two people are just sitting together and no words of Torah, no words of meaning pass between them, that's what he calls a session of scorners. Now hold on, this doesn't mean they're evil people plotting terrible things. It's much more ordinary. It's just people killing time. You know, gossip, small talk, distractions, just filling the air with noise so they never have to talk about anything that actually matters. The sin here isn't malice, it's avoidance.
And this is just a brilliant insight into human nature, right? The space between two people is never neutral. It's like a vacuum. It's always going to be filled with something. And if we don't intentionally fill it with meaning, well, it just naturally drifts downward. It drifts toward scorn, toward emptiness. But what happens when we do make that choice, when we choose to fill that space with something meaningful? The result is, well, it's nothing short of miraculous.
He goes on to say, but two who sit together and words of Torah pass between them, the Shekhinah rests between them. The Shekhinah, that's the divine presence. And listen closely to the Hebrew here. It's so specific. It says God's presence dwells between them. Right there, in that very space that could have been a wasteland of small talk, God actually takes up residence.
So what does that mean? It means you're creating a sacred space out of a totally ordinary interaction. That empty air between two people, it becomes holy ground.
And what's so amazing is just how accessible this is. Think about it. For God's presence to dwell in prayer, you need what's called a minyan, a group of 10 people. But for
For Torah study, all you need is 2. Heck, even one person studying alone gets a special reward. It doesn't take 2 brilliant scholars debating some complex point of law. No, it just takes 2 people choosing to share a thought that matters. The bar isn't brilliance, it's intention.
Now, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion, he didn't just teach this idea. He lived it. And in the end, he died for it. His own life became the ultimate, painful proof of his own teaching.
Here's what happened. After a failed Jewish revolt, the Roman Emperor Hadrian, he banned the study of Torah. The penalty was death. And while other sages went into hiding, Rabbi Chanina refused. He held public gatherings, a Torah scroll right there in his lap, out in the open, and he taught. Of course, he was arrested, and he was sentenced to be burned alive. And the Romans, they carry out this sentence with this calculated, unimaginable cruelty. They wrap him in the very same Torah scroll he was teaching from, and then they place wet wool over his heart, not to be merciful, but to do the opposite, to prolong the agony, to make sure he burns as slowly as possible.
His students are forced to stand there and watch, and in this moment of just unbelievable pain, they cry out to him. They ask, "Rabbi, what do you see?"
And with his last breath, he gives them his final lesson. He says, "The parchment is burning, but the letters are soaring upward." I mean, just let that sink in. In the ultimate act of being consumed, of being swallowed by fire, he shows them what can never be swallowed. The Romans could burn the parchment. They could burn his body. But the meaning, the letters, that holy connection that filled the space between all of them, that could not be destroyed. It soared free. His entire life's teaching, proven true right there in the heart of the flames.
So this ancient, tragic story, it leaves us with a really profound and very modern challenge. It forces us to look at the empty spaces in our own lives. That session of scorners he talked about, it's not some ancient evil. It's the group chat where nothing real is ever said. It's the friendship that never goes deeper than complaining about work. It's that coworker lunch that's just fueled by gossip. Or it's the marriage where 2 people haven't had a real, meaningful conversation in months. Those spaces aren't empty. They're being filled with something.
And that brings us right back to our 2 sages, our 2 Rabbi Chaninas. The first one gave us the minimum standard, right? Restraint by fear. It keeps the predators on a leash. But the second one, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion, he gave us the highest standard, creating holiness through meaning. It's the choice between just preventing destruction and actively creating something sacred.
So, the final question is for you. It's for all of us. The space between you and the people in your life, your friends, your family, your coworkers, it is never, ever empty. It is always being filled. The only question is, what are you filling it with?